Democrats on the brink of total government control. The Save America March rallies in D.C. Vice President Pence on the hot seat, and mask shaming on a train goes awry. No retreat, no surrender. My friends, if there was ever a time to start watching some of my favorite classic action and adventure movies, now is that time, because you need to steel your courage, friends. You need to get ready to hold the line. Democrats, unfortunately, have managed, and I don't even want to spend too much of our time today getting into the, oh, but the fraud. Oh, but they changed the rules. Yeah, we know, but we have to deal with where we are in this battle. There's only so much that we can do when it comes to pointing out the tricks, the cheating, the fraud of the other side. We still have to fight within the system. We still have to beat them on the playing field somehow, some way. And it's not going to be easy right now. You're looking at a Senate now to be in the hands, most likely, unless something happens. And you're looking at a Senate that's going to be in the hands of the Democrats, a House in the hands of Nancy Pelosi, and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will be the president and vice president, respectively. This is a moment when we have to think about what do we do next? And we also have to know what we didn't do or what wasn't done in our name the right way this time around so we don't repeat that error. Why did Mitch McConnell block $2,000 checks going to Americans under a certain income threshold to help them during this pandemic? What was the idea behind it? It wasn't conservative enough? Well, it's not conservative for the United States Senate to sit around and do nothing while government authorities across the country violate the Constitution, institute unconstitutional lockdowns, take tyrannical and dictatorial power in their hands, shut down businesses, and tell people that they're not allowed to make a living anymore. Tell them they can't see loved ones, tell them they have to wear a mask, all this stuff. And what did the Senate do? Well, as we know, the United States Congress holds the purse strings. That is their prerogative. That is their power. And they could have done a lot to help. And they were doing something to help. We had the PPP. We had those $600 checks that went out to people. But why not, with the Senate in the balance, be the ones who say, you know what, we'll figure this out later. We're going to get the checks to the American people now. We'll figure out how to pay for this down the line. But putting Democrats in charge, you know what we've managed to do here? Lose the battle as well as the war over the United States Senate. And that means that you're going to have $2,000 checks going to Americans. But guess what? Democrats are going to be the ones taking credit for it. So this principled stand was the equivalent of charging the machine gun nests without a plan. And we got wasted. That's what Mitch McConnell came up with. He has had his moments, friends. He is good about the judicial machinery. We've gotten a lot of judges through. He has held the line on those issues. But on political strategy, this was disastrous. Disastrous. And there is plenty of blame to go around. I don't want to focus too much of our time and attention on that, because I know that can become just a circular firing squad for Republicans. But we do need to understand what happened here. Kelly Leffler has no political skill or talent to anyone who's being an honest observer, but she's rich and connected and good at fundraising, and that was what got her into the position to get appointed as a United States Senator. And Perdue is an entirely replaceable GOP machine politician as well. At least he had a little bit more juice in his own state, in the peach state, as it were. But not enough. Not enough. President Trump campaigned for these candidates. He did 2 rallies for these candidates. He did what he could to push them over the finish line. Wasn't enough. Wasn't enough. As I'm talking to you now, there's still the chance, they're looking at additional votes, and there's recount territory we're talking about here with Purdue. But Warnock looks like he's got this thing. Kelly Leffler likely defeated unless something crazy happens. And we also need to take into account what's been going on in recent weeks, where we keep getting told, just wait, it's coming. Just wait, it's going to turn around. And it doesn't. And it doesn't. This is real talk, friends. We are heading into a 2-year period where now the pendulum has swung. And it's not going to a good place for those of us who believe in constitutional governance, in individual liberty, in personal freedom, in America first, love of this country, a feeling of unity and bond with the American people. No, we're going back to a government that is globalist, internationalist, collectivist, authoritarian, woke. Yes, socialist, but what we're seeing increasingly is that Americans aren't scared of socialism, at least not enough of us. Right now, we're in that phase because we're a very rich country where we think socialism is just you get free stuff. You're just going to keep getting free stuff. There's an endless amount of that free stuff. And while that's not true, it works for people who want to be in power. When you and I say socialism, there are a lot of Americans in states like Georgia who say, well, does that just mean I get free health care and my kids go to college for free? That sounds pretty good to me, because they get the benefits up front and the pain comes later. And so much of life, so much of our existence is really the battle between short-term and long-term gratification. Want to have a happy life? Want to get what you want in life and achieve your dreams? One mantra, one thing that you can do more than almost anything else that will put you in the place to get what you want, personally, professionally, everything else. Think long-term. Think strategically. Long-term gratification. Don't eat the first stale, crumbly donut that's put in front of you. Wait for the 2 fresh ones to come out of the oven that are going to be glistening with that frosting and perfectly cooked, right? That's one of the biggest challenges we all have in life. And in socialism, you get nothing but endless, free, but crumbly donuts that have been sitting there for who knows how long, because you're not thinking about what else will come out of the oven. You don't care. That's the way this has been set up for the American people. We are not winning this battle. Now, you would say to me, but Buck, Bernie Sanders didn't win the primary and is not the president. Now, isn't that a rejection of socialism? No, this is all just about the messaging. They're going to pursue many of the same policies, just at a slightly slower pace that Bernie Sanders would have. But they call themselves Democrats, you see. They don't tell you openly and honestly what they're really planning to do. And by the time everyone figures it out, it's too late. They've already done it. What are you going to do then? No, Mitch McConnell's decision to block $2,000 checks for Americans has only done one thing. It hasn't even stopped Americans from getting those checks. And if you're so concerned about the debt and the deficit, and let's remember, friends, we haven't heard about that for 4 years. We're going to start talking about it now. But until people feel the pain of that, until they understand what it means to the currency, to the value of the dollar, to your purchasing power in the global marketplace, until people really understand that, and who knows when that will happen, it just seems like it's all free, funny money. Mitch McConnell picked a very strange time to take a stand for this. And his leadership is over, and I don't know if he'll ever be Senate Majority Leader again. I don't think he should be. This was an unbelievable blunder. The focus on the cheating in Georgia, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to speak to you always honestly from the heart. The focus on the cheating from the Trump campaign in the last few weeks, I think, was too much. Because are we actually are we working to get the message out there to drive up votes, or are we going to get bogged down in the continued but they cheated in the election rhetoric? And I'm just speaking purely about what worked. I don't need to hear about but it's the principle of the thing. Yeah, we've been talking about the principle of the cheating in Georgia for now 2 months. And I told you that we had to get ready for January 5th and that this was going to come up on us. And I was worried. Those of you who listened to the show yesterday, I've been worried that we're going to lose these Senate seats from the beginning. I mean, ever since the November election, I thought, hold on a second. We got a problem in Georgia as well, beyond what just happened at the presidential level. And, you know, this Raffensperger feud with Trump and all this stuff. We needed a united and competent GOP in Georgia, and we did not have it. So I'm not here to tell you to despair. I'm not here to tell you that, all is lost, because it's not. It's not. Just remember, in 2008, they were writing the GOP's obituary. And then in 2010, we got, 6 Senate seats? I can't even remember how many. A huge red wave of House seats, a Tea Party. And that's what we need to go to now. I'm not sitting here, boo-hoo, woe is America. No. We're learning a tough lesson here. The other side is ruthless, they're unscrupulous, and they want power, and they will wield power, and they'll do it in such a way they hope we can never get it back. It is our job, it is our duty to this country to fight and to stop them from achieving those goals. It's our duty to make sure that we hold the line for what is most precious in this country and use what we can within the system, everything that we can, to slow them down. That's right. They gave us a lesson for 4 years in the extremes they will go to thwart the Trump agenda. And unfortunately, they were successful in some key areas. Well, let's learn. One of my favorite things to do is to learn from an enemy, learn from an opponent, take their moves and use them against them. That's what we need to do now. All out, stymie, stumble, hobble, slow it down, sabotage, whatever we have to do to stop them from turning this country into a one-party state where you exist effectively at the whim and will of government bureaucrats, where nothing is sacred anymore. You have no right that they can't infringe on. And we see all this with COVID. That's what's really pulled off the mask, if you will. What their real long-term plan is to tell you that they can make you do anything they want. They don't even have to pass legislation to do it. We must come up with a way to unify and fight back against them. And I hope this show is a part of this. That will be my mission every day. This is where we are, friends. So watch Braveheart, watch 300, watch a movie, whatever it is for you that gets you fired up. Think about the tyrannies of the past and understand that you, if you want to be a part of this fight now, are going to have to get ready to play some serious defense. It's only going to be 2 years. I am very confident about these midterms, but this is where we are. Dig in, shields up, shields high.
It's the height of hypocrisy for people who claim to be the champions of rights for women to deny the very biological existence of women. And this recent rule change that the House just actually voted and passed on today that you were talking about, removing references to, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters from congressional rules and administration, it's mind-blowing because it shows just how out of touch with reality and the struggles of everyday Americans people in Congress are, but also it shows that, their first act as this new Congress could have been to make sure that elderly Americans are able to get the COVID vaccine now alongside frontline healthcare workers, elderly Americans who have the highest mortality rates from this virus. But instead of doing something that could actually help save people's lives, they're choosing instead to say, well, you can't say mother or father in any of this congressional language. It's astounding.
That's a very important point that a Democrat, Tulsi Gabbard, who is wrong on politics, but clearly a good person, clearly a person of some decency and character. Wrong about a lot, hates Trump, I get it, but still a reasonable, a reasonable person on some things, and I think at her core, someone that you can at least have a real conversation with. And she's not. You know why the left has always hated her? Because she doesn't disparage Republicans. She doesn't despise them. She disagrees with them, but she doesn't think if you voted for Donald Trump in the past, you're beneath contempt. Maybe it's in part because she served her country in the military and has greater ideals and aspirations beyond just the partisan fight. As I've said, I think she's wrong on some things, but on this, she's making a key point. People are dying in large numbers from COVID-19. There's a need for urgent government action. The vaccine rollout at many different levels is too slow and is preposterous. All right. What they're doing here, throwing vaccine out in the trash sometimes because they can't give it to people who aren't the people they're supposed to give it to, but they've already thawed out some of it. And so for bureaucratic reasons, they can't get it to, the exact right group. So they give it to no one. They throw it out. Think about that. That's actually happening. And while that's going on, instead of taking urgent action to get this to people, and I'm talking about seniors should get the vaccine. The vaccine is less dangerous for seniors than the virus is. Okay, that's clear. If you're a senior listening to this, please, it's up to you, but I would implore you, even the people that have been like me, that have been talking about the craziness of the COVID mask shaming, lockdown lunatics, all of us are saying, well, if you're over 60, over 65, and you can get this vaccine, that may be the difference between you getting hospitalized with this and you living another, 20, 25, 30 years happily, healthily. So please give it some real consideration. But what Tulsi is saying here is that they're talking about eliminating mother and father from all congressional You can't say mother and father. You got to have more gender inclusive language. Now, I know on the one hand, this is idiotic and just worthy of mockery, but it's also part of a mindset. While we sit here and talk about, and Republicans do this all the time, legislation, what can we do? What should the tax code be? All these things. You know what they do? They change the rules of society. They change the culture. They change the way we're allowed to speak, because that submission feeds into all the other policies, all the other things they're trying to do. They know that if they can get us to talk about issues a certain way, they can also get enough of us to agree with them on those issues. This degendering of language is insane, but there's a reason they're doing it. This is all part of a plan, and we're about to see this on steroids for the next 2 years.
If you're Mike Pence, who has a long history in Washington and as a governor, if you are going to enable the disease of Trump, the lies, the attempt to steal an election, to undermine democracy, then history is going to judge you very harshly, and you don't deserve any future in electoral politics. There's no two ways about it. He's vice president of the United States. He has a responsibility to the integrity of that office, to the integrity of himself. What he's been engaged in is a hedge, is a way to tack back and forth to stay in Donald Trump's good favor. That's a decision he's made as an individual. And so he'll have to be judged for that. But it's certainly not in keeping with everything that he claims to stand for as a human being and as a politician, because there's simply no excuse for trying to thwart the will of voters. It is undemocratic.
Give me a break. All right, can we stop with all the, oh my gosh, the tyrant, the Constitution? These people have neither read nor care about the Constitution, and they had no problem using the media and the federal government, the DOJ, the FBI, the intelligence community as a weapon against Trump for 4 years with the Russia collusion lie that they were all active participants in and the initial creators of. But I also need to tell you this, and this is just very clear. Vice President Pence is not going to give the election to Trump. He's already told them he doesn't have the authority to do this, and he's not going to do this. That's not going to happen. So, and I understand there's probably some people today, and that you're going to hear, I would ask that you pay attention to who respects you enough to speak honestly to you about all of this, who respects you enough to speak honestly, and who pander. Because we're all bothered right now. We're all very disappointed. I'm disappointed for the country. I'm disappointed for the Democrat, because I know they think that this circumstance, that this government will be better. And in some ways, for their interest, they would think it is. But overall, we're going to be less free, less prosperous, and less optimistic because of the decisions that have been made in the last 3 months by voters. And now I know fraud, cheating, changing the rules. I understand that. But, at some point, if you've lost a football game because they paid off the refs, you can only talk about it for so long before you got to say, okay, well, how do we stop that from happening in the next football game? And how do we win that game? And we're getting very close to that point. Do it, Mike. This is a time for extreme courage, Trump says in a tweet. He's saying that he wants Mike Pence to effectively overturn this whole thing. It's not gonna. I keep telling you, it's just not gonna happen. The same way that I've been saying that we're going to deal with a presidency of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I'm here to tell you the truth. And the truth on this situation is that Mike Pence will not do this. He cannot and will not. Now, I understand Trump, I think, is trying to mobilize everybody for what's coming. And he wants to show that he will fight with everything he has. He wants to show that even if he knows that this is a match, this is a boxing match where we're about to lose on points, he is going to go down throwing every punch he's got, and he's going to stay in this until the bell rings. And I respect that, and I can appreciate that. But they've pointed us, so to speak, up to this phase, and we don't have enough time to make it up in this election. We just don't. If you think I'm missing something, if you think that there's some aspect of this I'm not seeing, please let me know. One thing I love about this audience is I have learned so much, now going on almost 10 years. I've learned so much from the people who listen to this show. I still remember when some of you people are still listening today. I mean, many of you now have been listening to my radio show for 8 years, 9 years. But I remember when some of you were telling me, hey, Trump, early in the primary, he's got something. He's coming with something that people haven't seen before, and you were right. So if I'm in some way not seeing the matrix clearly here, by all means, let me know, because I exist. I do this show every day to serve you, to inform and entertain all of you listening all across the country, hundreds of thousands of you, and it means a lot. But it also means that I have to share with you my honest feelings every day. I owe that to you. And, today is one of these days where we have to just rally. We have taken a punch, and it stinks. And there are better words for it, but I can't say them on radio. That is where the situation is. So I appreciate there are all these patriots rallying today in D.C., and this is what I would say. And, there include friends of mine. Many friends of mine are down there. What I would say about this is that there is a need right now for unity in opposition to what's happening. We need to come together. We need to be in a place. We need to be in a position where we understand what we're trying to achieve and what we're trying to thwart. And a part of this is going to be, I want good faith Republicans from all across the spectrum, even people that were a little, not never Trumpers, who are just, they're Democrats, but people that were a little iffy on Trump or whatever. We all need to be in the same foxhole now. We all need to come together on this one and see what we're up against, because the Democrats, they're going to spend 2 years trying to steamroll us. You know what I think their first move is going to be? And you can mark this one down. They're going to eliminate the filibuster. You know what they're going to do? they're going to eliminate the filibuster to pass $2,000 stimulus checks or to pass a national $15 minimum wage. That's what they're going to do. Something that is generally popular, but that Republicans haven't been willing to go along with, or that Republicans have objections to. And they're going to say, see, we got rid of the filibuster. We did this for you, America. How do you like those $2,000 checks? How do you like that $15 minimum wage increase? And then, as Republicans are going, there's a think tank that wrote a study about minimum wage. We were going to do what we always do. Then they're going to roll out, oh, yeah, now that filibuster thing's gone, how about we do an amnesty vote? And we're not going to do full-scale amnesty. Let's do it incrementally. Let's do DACA. Come on, we'll get to 50-50 on DACA. Kamala gets to be the tiebreaker. You don't think that's... Think of the political boost that Kamala Harris gets if she is the tie-breaking vote in the Senate for the passage of a limited amnesty that will grant a permanent status, legal status, to millions of so-called dreamers, illegal aliens who allegedly came here at a certain age, depending on what the statutes say. Think about that. That's going to be part of the whole narrative, isn't it? Kamala Harris. So it's Biden gets to sign it. Kamala Harris gets to be the tie-breaking vote. We need to get this going, friends. There is no Kraken coming to attack our enemies. And in fact, if you remember, the Kraken getting unleashed, didn't work out. Remember that? That's one thing about release the Kraken. The problem with it is that, the Kraken lost. We didn't even have one. So one thing that I will tell you is that you're also going to see who really has ideas and knowledge and understanding of these issues and who was just hanging on Trump's coattails for the last 4 years. Had nothing to add, had nothing to contribute really to the national conversation, but saw it all as just a case of individual opportunism. There are a lot of them in conservative media. I want you to understand this. There are other people that have always stood for things that matter to the country and can articulate them and will be worthwhile in opposition. Because just trying to repeat whatever they think is going to be the most pleasing to Trump, that's not going to work anymore when we are out of power and in opposition. We need more than that. We need to win on the battlefield of ideas. And that means also winning the culture, and it means finding common ground on these issues with independents where we can. It means mobilizing a populist conservative coalition to take back power from these lunatic libs. That's where we have to go now. We have to build it. We have to construct it. I wish I could say it was already there. I wish I could point to the house on the hill and say, there we are, we're all set. No, now we have to go out into the woods and hack down the trees and build it from scratch. That's the feeling, at least, of where we are at this moment in time. But embrace it. It's a fight worth having.
Do you think you'd get fair treatment from CNN if your brother had a primetime show on that channel?
Well, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, every day would be Christmas. But, I think it's pretty clear some of these networks, obviously, they have agendas. They're doing narratives. They're not trying to report facts anymore. It's all about spinning whatever narrative they think can get ratings. And that's just the reality of the situation. So it doesn't impact me. We're going to continue keeping our eye on the ball and working as hard as we can to deliver results.
And results have been delivered. Let's focus on some positives here. The lockdown libs, the Democrat left, they have been wrong on this stuff, on how to handle COVID. And I know you'd say, well, but Buck, look at how the elections are going. Yeah, but it's really just Trump and Georgia that we have to mourn at this point as elections go. It's really just those. And I know that's a lot. I'm not saying it's minor, but the House Republicans actually picked up seats. And state legislatures did well. There's some reason for limited optimism about that. I know if we had held the Senate, everything would have felt like it was okay. But I wouldn't say okay, but it would have felt better. Folks, I'm trying to find silver linings. You know what I'm saying? But Florida is one big silver lining because you have a governor who has defied the consensus. You have a governor who has refused to go and bend the knee to the Fauciites. That guy Fauci is a complete jackass. And it's disgusting what he's done to the country. He should be ashamed of himself. He's not. He never will be. And that's important for everybody to know. It doesn't matter. There will never come a time when the people who advocated for all of this sit back and say, you know what? We were wrong. You know what? We didn't have to lock down the country after all. That didn't really give us any benefit, and it caused a lot of drawbacks for us. So we're sorry. Unfortunately, I can sit here and tell you that's never going to happen. Doesn't matter what the data shows. Doesn't matter what the eventual epidemiological advances are when we have a better understanding of how really the virus spread, meaning how quickly, how easily. We have some general numbers about all that, but all right, how well do, notice you can't even ask this question. If I say, how well do masks work? People start screaming, masks work. Okay, how well? I can tell you how well a vaccine works based on large controlled trials, different vaccines, 95, 94% effective for COVID-19. That's real data. How well do masks work? Anyone want to try it? We've got a model that says if 80% of people wore a mask 90% of the time in 40% of places, then it would be 95%. This is all just make-believe. They don't know. That's not real data. That's like when they're telling you what the climate's going to be in 100 years. They don't, and they're wrong, of course. Every 10 years, they have to keep adjusting these things. They don't know. But they're never going to change. They're never going to admit that this was all disastrous. And in fact, I'm of the belief that the Democrats' ability to dominate the narrative because of the media panic that was induced, or the media inducing panic in the public, the Democrat narrative about COVID and how Trump was so inept and so ineffective in handling it, I think that played a very large role in the election because, that's not something people would necessarily tell to a pollster. It's not something that the data would all that clearly indicate, but I think that it affected overall perception. Is Trump doing a good job? A lot of people would look at what happened in 2020 with COVID and they'd say, well, look at how terrible things are in the country. Is that fair? No. Did the media exploit this? Yes. But it worked. It worked. And what we're going to see now is there are going to be these red state or redder states, place like Florida, havens set up, and where you have these mass migrations occurring from the blue strongholds, California, New York. They're going to have enormous problems. Now, they're going to try to make up that shortfall in tax revenue and at the federal level now. That's right. The federal bailouts are coming for these cities. So understand that's the socialism that we don't spend much time talking about, the redistribution of wealth to preferred Democrat enclaves at the federal level. Now, they would say, but they pay more in taxes and the red states have, they get more benefits per resident. What I'm saying is that, but they're about to turn this whole thing around because they're going to start shooting the money gun at all these blue states that are hemorrhaging residents. They can try to shore up the public sector unions. They can try to make it seem like the holes in the budgets are not so catastrophic. So they're going to try to stop that mass migration from happening because it's bad for the Democrat brand. Florida, I saw DeSantis say that they're up 20% in housing sales, 20% during a pandemic. People are fleeing. They're going there. They're saying, enough. I can't do this anymore. I talked to friends in New York. I got to say, we're under a strict lockdown here, and people are just they're cracking up. I mean, they're losing it. For what? What's the benefit? What would happen if you opened up restaurants in New York City, but you had these mitigation measures in place, limitations of people? The answer is it would basically be what it is right now. So why not open up the restaurants? It would based on their data, it would be 99% the same. That's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's worth putting tens of thousands of people out of work, immiserated, sick, homeless, perhaps. All it's worth that to have a possible 1% reduction in cases. Wow. I guess You know, if it saves just one life, we better shut down every year for the flu if that's going to be our approach. Every year, got to shut down. The flu's coming. What, those tens of thousands of lives don't matter? You know what would happen if we... I have to wonder, the flu is basically eradicated. How is that possible? Oh, because social distancing and mask wearing now, we're led to believe, is almost 100% effective against the influenza virus, but like not effective if really, well, you can't prove it any data effectiveness whatsoever based on what's happening right now with COVID. Notice they don't even have an explanation for this. Other than, yeah, it works against the flu super well. That's quite strange considering there are tens of millions of flu cases every year. It's pretty contagious, folks. But DeSantis is a shining light from a sunshine state. We gotta take our victories where we can.